When my daughter told me I had 24 hours to leave the home I'd built for us, I collapsed on our kitchen floor sobbing while she packed my bags. 3 months later, I was signing papers that made me the secret heir to billions. That's when I realized life isn't just a roller coaster. It's one designed by a vengeful engineer who wants to see just how much your heart can take before it breaks. If you're watching this, please subscribe and tell me where you're from in the comments. Because trust me, this story twists more than a hurricane in the Atlantic, and you won't want to miss what happened next. My name is Clara, and 6 months ago, I was just an ordinary 48-year-old art teacher living in a modest house in the suburbs of São Paulo with my daughter Sofia. My husband Paulo had died 5 years earlier, leaving me to raise our only child alone. We weren't rich, but we managed. The house was small but comfortable, and Sofia was in her final year of university. I thought we were happy. That Tuesday started like any other. I was grading papers at the kitchen table when Sofia burst through the front door with Larson, her boyfriend of 8 months. I'd always had my reservations about him. Something in his eyes never quite matched his smile, but I kept them to myself. Sofia was an adult, and I respected her choices. "Mom, we need to talk," Sofia said, her voice unnaturally cold as she set her keys on the counter. Larson stood behind her, arms crossed, looking at our home like he was already measuring it for new furniture. "What is wrong, honey?" I asked, setting down my red pen. "Larson and I have decided to move in together," she said. "Here." I blinked, confused. "You want to both live here? Well, I suppose we could convert the office." "No, Mom," Sofia interrupted. "We want the house. Just us. My heart is stuttered. I don't understand." Sofia's eyes, so like her father's, hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "I need you to move out. Dad left this house to both of us, and I'm exercising my right to buy you out." "Buy me out?" "Sofia, this is our home. Where would I go?" Larson stepped forward. "We've already spoken to a lawyer. You have 24 hours to decide. Take the buyout or we force a sale. Script part separator ===. The blood drained from my face. 24 hours? This is insane. "Sofia, we need to talk, alone." I glanced meaningfully at Larson. "Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of Larson," Sofia replied, leaning against him. "I sotod up, my hand is shaking. Paulo never left the house to both of us. I'm the sole owner. I have the deed." Sofia smiled, a cold, calculating smile I'd never seen before. "Actually, you don't. Dad left me 50% in a trust that activated when I turned 21. I've had my share for 2 years." The room spun. Paulo had never mentioned this. We'd always made decisions together. How could he have kept this secret? "The buyout is fair," Larson said, sliding an envelope across the table. $60,000. Enough for a small apartment. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The market value of our house was at least 3 times that amount. "This is robbery," I whispered. Sofia shrugged. "It's non-negotiable. We need to start our life together, and we need space." "Our life together?" My voice cracked. "Sofia, erase de you here. Every birthday, every Christmas, this is our home." "Was our home," Sofia corrected. "Dad wanted me to have security. This is me securing my future." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The stubborn chin, the defensive posture. But it was her eyes that terrified me. They were empty, like she was looking at a stranger. "What happened to you?" I asked softly. "I grew up," she snapped. "Something you can't seem to accept." Larson checked his watch. "We've got dinner reservations. The papers are there. Sign them, take the check, and be out by tomorrow night." They left me standing in the kitchen, my world collapsing. That night, I searched desperately through Paulo's files, hoping to find something, anything, that would explain this nightmare or prove them wrong. Instead, I found our financial records in shambles and a second mortgage I knew nothing about. By morning, I realized I had no choice. With no money for legal battles and nowhere to go, I signed the papers with tears blurring my vision. Script part separator ===. I packed 2 suitcases with clothes and a box of photos, the tangible remains of my life. Sophia watched from the doorway, arms crossed, occasionally checking her phone. Where will you go? She asked, her voice flat. Does it matter to you? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. For just a moment, something flickered across Sophia's face. Doubt, perhaps. But Larson appeared behind her, hands on her shoulders. Your Uber's here, he announced. As I wheeled my suitcases to the door, I paused by the hallway table. There sat a ceramic vase Sophia had made in 3rd grade, lopsided and painted with childish flowers. I reached for it. Leave that, Sophia said sharply. It belongs to the house. It belongs to the mother who kept it all these years, I replied, carefully wrapping it in a sweater and placing it in my bag. That night, I checked into a budget motel with peeling wallpaper and a mattress that sagged in the middle. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, waiting for Sophia to call, to say it was all a mistake, that she'd come to her senses. The call never came. The next morning brought cruel clarity. I had $60,000, no home, and according to the bank, a credit score devastated by Paulo's secret debts. My teaching salary wouldn't qualify me for a decent apartment in São Paulo. I applied for a small loan to bridge the gap, denied. I called friends, everyone was so sorry but had no room. I even called Paulo's brother, who hadn't spoken to us since the funeral. You made your bed with Paulo, he said coldly. Now you can lie in it. 3 weeks later, I was down to $50,000, still living in the motel, and growing desperate. I'd been passed over for the department head position at school, unstable living situation, the principal explained apologetically. That night, I sat in a 24-hour diner, calculating how long my money would last at current burn rates. The waitress refilled my coffee cup for the 4th time, looking at me with pity. Rough night? She asked. Rough life, I answered. She nodded toward my spreadsheet. Numbers don't add up. Nothing adds up anymore. Script part separator, The waitress, Marlene according to her name tag, slid into the booth across from me. I've seen that look before, she said. My sister had it when her husband cleaned out their accounts and disappeared. I sipped my coffee. At least your sister knew her husband was the villain. I don't know if it's my daughter or her boyfriend pulling the strings. Does it matter? The knife hurts the same either way. She was right. The betrayal cut deep regardless of who held the blade. The next morning, I received an email from the school principal. Due to budget cuts, my art program was being restructured. Translation: I was out of a job. I sat on the motel bed, staring at my laptop screen until the words blurred. First my home, now my career. The walls closed in around me. My phone rang, Sophia. My heart leapt. Mom. Her voice sounded small. Sophia. I've been waiting for you to call. I need the recipe for abuelas empanadas. Larson's parents are visiting. The hope that had flared died instantly. That's why you're calling. For a recipe. I thought you'd want to help. Help. You throw me out of my home and now want cooking advice? Silence stretched between us. Mom, don't be dramatic. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Dramatic. I'm living in a motel. I just lost my job. That's not my fault. Look, if you don't want to share the recipe, your grandmother wrote it in the cookbook in the kitchen cabinet. The one you vou do te let me take. Gap, hendes shaking wifi rage and hirt. 3 days later, I received a certified letter. Sophia and Larson were suing me for the remaining $15,000 from Paulo's life insurance policy, money I'd been saving for emergencies. According to their lawyer, Sophia was entitled to half as Paulo's dependent. They'd discovered the policy during a routine review of the house documents. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I couldn't fight this. The walls of my tiny motel room seemed to pulse with my rising panic. That night, I stood in the bathroom, staring at my reflection, hollow eyes, new wrinkles etched by stress, and made a decision. I would not break. Whatever it took, I would survive this. Script part separator, I surrendered the life insurance money 2 weeks later, watching my emergency fund drain away with a few strokes of a pen. As I left the lawyer's office, something inside me hardened. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about finding a way forward when every door seemed to slam in my face. By month 2, I'd moved from the motel to a tiny room in a shared apartment with 3 college students. I found work at a local cafe serving coffee to people who reminded me of my former life. The pay was barely enough to cover rent, but I clung to whatever dignity remained. One afternoon, an elderly woman with sharp eyes sat at my section, watching me work. When I brought her check, she held out a business card. "You look like someone who needs a real job," she said. "My foundation helps women in transition." Maria Goncalves ran a small non-profit offering financial counseling to women facing unexpected crises. She hired me as an administrative assistant, and for the first time since Sophia's betrayal, I felt like I could breathe. Maria became more than an employer. She became my lifeline. When I finally told her my full story, she listened without judgment. "Clara," she said afterward, "sometimes life strips everything away so you can discover what you're truly made of." Those words stayed with me as I rebuilt my routine. Each morning, I'd wake before dawn, make coffee in my tiny shared kitchen, and spend 30 minutes writing down one thing I was grateful for, even if some days all I could manage was "I'm still here." The apartment was noisy and cramped, but I found unexpected friendship with my young roommates. They taught me about streaming services and social media. I taught them how to cook meals that didn't come from packages. Slowly, painstakingly, I created a new normal. My bank account remained desperately low, but I was surviving. The constant ache of Sophia's betrayal dulled from stabbing pain to a persistent throb. Then came the letter that would change everything. Script part. Hugo leaned forward, placing his manicured fingertips together. "There are conditions, Ms. Costa. I'd assumed as much. Nothing this dramatic comes without strings." "What conditions?" "First, you must maintain absolute confidentiality for 90 days. The board of Rocha Industries doesn't know yet. Elisabeth wanted you to have time to prepare before the inevitable chaos." My head spun. Why the secrecy? Why me? Hugo's expression remained neutral. "Elisabeth had her reasons. She kept detailed journals about your family's history, journals I've been instructed to give you before the formal announcement." He slid an elegant leather-bound notebook across the table. "This is the first volume. There are 12 more." I touched the cover hesitantly. What am I supposed to do with billions of dollars? "I'm an art teacher who serves coffee." "Not anymore," Hugo said firmly. "Now, you're the controlling shareholder of one of Brazil's largest private companies. But more importantly," his voice softened slightly, "you're the woman who can finally correct a historical injustice." "What injustice?" "It's all in the journals. Your mother wasn't just estranged from the Rocha family. She was deliberately cut out after marrying your father. The inheritance he should have received was redirected." I felt dizzy. "Are you saying my father was wealthy?" Hugo checked his watch. "We have much to discuss, but not today. My associate will take you to a secure location where you can read the first journal. Tomorrow, we'll meet again." "Wait, I can't just disappear. I have a job, roommates. All handled. Maria Goncalves works with us. Your employment was strategic." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Maria knew about this. Maria has been Elisabeth's friend for 30 years. She was asked to evaluate your character, not just your circumstances. Script part separator. He passed me a phone. Pre-programmed, secure. Everything you need for the next week is arranged. A car is waiting downstairs. I stood on shaky legs. This morning I was worrying about making rent. Now you begin to reclaim what was taken from your family," Hugo finished. "But be cautious, Ms. Costa. Wealth attracts predators. Some you'll recognize, others you won't see coming until it's too late." The sleek black car delivered me to an elegant apartment in a building with discreet security. Inside, I found clothes in my size, food in the refrigerator, and a safe containing the remaining journals. I spent that night reading Elisabeth's elegant script by lamplight, uncovering a family history I never knew. My grandfather, Elisabeth's uncle, had built Rocha Industries from nothing, but died before formalizing his will. My father, the rightful heir, had been systematically pushed out by relatives who saw him as unworthy. My mother had tried fighting but eventually chose love over money, cutting ties completely. They'd lived modestly, never telling me about our connection to one of Brazil's wealthiest families. The most shocking revelation came near dawn. Paulo had known. My husband had discovered the connection years ago and had been secretly negotiating with Elizabeth, not for me, but for himself. His sudden death had prevented his plan to leave me for a younger woman once he secured Elizabeth's money. The second mortgage, the hidden debts, all part of his scheme. I sat on the balcony as sunrise painted the city gold, tears streaming down my face. My husband had betrayed me, my daughter had abandoned me, and now a woman I barely remembered had made me a billionaire. The next morning, Hugo arrived with a team, financial advisors, security specialists, image consultants. For 3 days, I absorbed information about offshore accounts, board politics, and media strategy. Script part separator, On the 4th day, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. How do I protect this inheritance from Sophia and Larson? Hugo's expression darkened. We've investigated your son-in-law. Larson Montero has a concerning history. 3 failed businesses, gambling debts, and a pattern of attaching himself to wealthy women. Sophia isn't wealthy, I said. But she had access to property. And now he's pushing to sell the house. Did you know that? My heart sunk. Already. They just moved in. They need capital. Our sources indicate Larson has convinced Sophia to invest in a business opportunity that requires substantial cash. The house is just the beginning. I remembered Sophia's cold eyes as she'd handed me eviction papers. My own daughter. I want to protect her, I said quietly. Even after everything. Hugo nodded. Elizabeth anticipated this. There's a provision for Sophia, a trust that activates only after certain conditions are met. In the meantime, we need to secure your position. That afternoon, I signed documents giving Hugo's firm power to represent my interests while I remained anonymous. For 90 days, I would be the silent owner of Rocha Industries while learning everything I needed to know. That evening, as I stood on the balcony watching Sao Paulo's lights flicker to life, my secure phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Enjoying your new accommodations, Clara? Not everyone is pleased about Elizabeth's decision. Watch your back. A friend. I showed Hugo the message the next morning. It begins, he sighed. The board members are getting nervous. Someone's heard rumors. Who would send this? Ricardo Almeida, most likely. He's been running Rocha Industries since Elizabeth became ill. He expected to inherit her shares. Is he dangerous? Everyone with power is dangerous, Clara. Which is why we need to accelerate your preparation. Script part separator, The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. By day, I studied company reports, learned about international finance, and practiced speaking with the authority expected of someone worth billions. By night, I read Elizabeth's journals, piecing together my family's complicated history. One entry stopped me cold. Paulo Costa visited again today. He claims to love Clara, but his eyes betray him. He wants the money, not reconciliation. I've decided to test his character. Elizabeth had offered Paulo $5 million to divorce me. He'd counteroffered for $10 million, plus a position on the board. The negotiations had been ongoing until his sudden heart attack. I sat with this knowledge for hours, replaying our marriage in my mind. Had there ever been genuine love, or was I simply a stepping stone to wealth he believed was rightfully his? When I finally slept, I dreamed of Sophia as a little girl, holding my hand as we walked through a park. I woke with tears streaming down my face and a resolve hardening in my heart. That morning, I made a decision. I want to see the house, I told Hugo during our daily briefing. He frowned. Your former house. That's not advisable. Não estou com Sophia. Just observe. I need to understand what's happening. Hugo reluctantly arranged for an unmarked car with tinted windows. We parked across the street from the modest home where I'd raised my daughter. De garden e de loving tende duas overgrown. A for sale sign stood in the yard. Through the windows, I could see unfamiliar furniture had replaced our family pieces. They're already moving out, I whispered. The sale closes next week, Hugo confirmed. Significantly under market value. They needed cash quickly. As we watched, A sleek convertible pulled into the driveway. Larson stepped out, followed by Sophia. She looked thinner, her movements nervous as she glanced at Larson for approval. "Something's wrong," I said, recognizing the signs of stress in my daughter's posture. "She's afraid. Script part separator, Hugo studied Sophia through narrowed eyes. "You're right. That's not the body language of someone in control." An older man in an expensive suit approached them from a waiting car. Larson shook his hand vigorously while Sophia hung back. "Who's that?" I asked. Hugo took a discreet photo with his phone. "I'll find out. But my guess. They're buyer or investor." That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of Sophia, tense, diminished, haunted me. Despite everything, maternal instinct screamed that she was in trouble. The next morning, Hugo confirmed my fears. "The man is Vitor Mendonça. He runs a private investment group with connections to some unsavory gambling operations. Larson owes his organization nearly $200,000. My blonde rancode. They're selling my house to pay gambling debts? It appears so. And based on our intelligence, the house sale won't cover everything Larson owes. Sophia doesn't know, does she? Unlikely. Our sources suggest she believes they're investing in a resort development. I paced the apartment, rage building. We need to stop this. Legally, we can't interfere with the house sale, Hugo cautioned. But we can gather evidence. If Larson is defrauding Sophia, I want everything, I demande. Every detail about Larson's debts, his past, his plans. And I want to know who this Victor really is. 3 days later, Hugo arrived with a thick file. "You were right to be concerned," he said grimly. "Victor Mendonça isn't just collecting a debt. He's pressuring Larson to access more money, specifically, to find out if Sophia has inheritance coming. They're after my money," I whispered. "They don't even know about it yet, but they're already hunting." Hugo nodded solemnly. "And they're getting desperate. Larson has 2 weeks to deliver the full amount, or Victor's people will take alternative compensation." The implication chilled me to the bone. They're threatening Sophia? Not explicitly. But the risk is real. I straightened my shoulders, feeling something shift inside me. Then we move up our timeline. I'm done hiding. Script part separator, That night, I made my first public appearance as Elisabeth Rocha's heir at a charity gala frequented by Sao Paulo's elite. The custom-tailored black dress felt like armor as I stepped out of the limousine, flashbulbs exploding around me. "Ms. Costa," called the reporters. "Is it true you're worth billions now?" I smiled enigmatically, following Hugo's coaching. "All questions will be answered at tomorrow's press conference." Whispers followed me through the ballroom. I heard fragments, "from nowhere, teacher, Rocha fortune," as I navigated toward my target, Victor Mendonça. He stood near the bar, commanding attention from a group of admirers. Up close, he looked even more dangerous, cold eyes that calculated value with every glance. "Mr. Mendonça," he said, extending my hand. "Clara Costa. I believe you know my daughter." His expression flickered with confusion before smoothing into a practiced smile. "Mestre Costa, your recent good fortune is the talk of the city." "Yes, quite unexpected. Rather like the sudden sale of my former home." Victor Zaisnahowe desligou. Business opportunities arise unexpectedly. Indeed. Speaking of business, I'd like to discuss Larson Montero's debt to you. Perhaps somewhere private. The color drained from his face. "I don't know what. $200,000. Gambling debts. Plus interest." I smiled. "I'm prepared to settle it. With conditions." 20 minutes later, in a quiet anteroom, I laid out my terms. I would pay Victor's organization the full amount owed, plus a premium for his cooperation. In exchange, he would surrender all claims against Larson, and provide documented evidence of the gambling debts. "Why not just bail out your son-in-law directly?" Victor asked. "Because Larson isn't family," I replied coldly. "And I need him to understand exactly who he's dealing with." Script part separator, The next morning, my face dominated every financial news outlet in Brazil. Art teacher inherits Roche billions, screamed the headlines. The press conference Hugo arranged was a strategic masterpiece. I presented myself as humble yet determined, honoring Elizabeth's legacy while announcing a major foundation for women in financial crisis. I made no mention of Sophia or Larson. Let them discover the news like everyone else. They didn't wait long. By afternoon, my secure phone buzzed with Sophia's number. Is it true? She demanded when I answered. Her voice trembled between anger and disbelief. Hello, Sophia. Yes, it's true. Why didn't you tell me? All this time, living in a motel, working at a cafe, it was all an act? No. I only learned about the inheritance 6 weeks ago. Before that, everything was exactly as it appeared. Your mother, homeless and struggling because her daughter threw her out. Silence stretched between us. I heard muffled voices, Larson, demanding she hand over the phone. Mom, Sophia whispered finally. We need to talk. Alone. I agree. Tomorrow, my office, 2 p.m. Come alone, Sophia. If Larson appears, the meeting is cancelled. I ended the call as Larson's outraged voice grew louder in the background. Less than an hour later, Larson called from his own phone. Clara. What wonderful news. His voice oozed false warmth. We should celebrate as a family. Family. I let ice crystallize around the word. That's an interesting term from the man who gave me 24 hours to leave my home. That was a misunderstanding. Sophia was confused. Save it, Larson. I'm not interested in your version of events. His tone shifted instantly. Listen carefully. Sophia owns half that house, which makes her entitled to half your inheritance too. We'll sue. For what? I laughed coldly. Elizabeth's will is ironclad. But speaking of entitlements, I've settled your gambling debts with Victor Mendonça. The line went dead silent. How do you know about that? Larson finally stammered. I know everything, Larson. The debts, the threats, the pressure you've put on my daughter to sell her home. I've purchased all your markers. You now owe me instead of Victor. You can't. I can. I did. And tomorrow, I'll decide what to do about it. After I speak with Sophia. Alone. I hung up, heart hammering. 4 years, I'd been the agreeable one, the peacemaker. This new power, the ability to silence a bully with words, was intoxicating and terrifying. Sophia arrived at exactly 2 p.m. the next day. She'd lost weight, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. The confident young woman who had evicted me was gone, replaced by someone fragile and uncertain. Mom, she began, then stopped, her rehearsed speech evaporating. I sat behind my desk, forcing myself to remain composed when every maternal instinct screamed to comfort her. Sit down, Sophia. She perched on the edge of the chair. I didn't know about Larson's gambling. I swear. He told me we were investing in a resort development. I nodded. I believe you. Her eyes widened in surprise. You do. You've never been a good liar, Sophia. Not since you were 5 and broke my ceramic vase, the same one you wouldn't let me take. Tears filled her eyes. You was so stupid. He convinced me you were holding me back, that Dad would have wanted me to strike out on my own. And the money. The house is sale. She looked down. The house is gone. The money too. Larson said it was just temporary, that our investment would triple in 6 months. I placed a folder on the desk. This contains evidence of everything Larson has done. The gambling, the lies, the pressure tactics from Victor's organization. Sophia flipped through the pages, her face paling. What happens now? That depends on you. Now you have a choice, Sophia. I said, leaning forward. You can continue down this path with Larson, or you can start over. How? She whispered. I have nothing left. You have me, I said softly. Despite everything. Sophia broke down then, sobbing apologies between gasps for air. I moved around the desk and held my daughter for the first time in months, feeling her body shake against mine. When she calmed, I outlined my conditions. She would file a police report about Larson's financial fraud. She would enter therapy. And she would work, actually work, at the foundation I was establishing. What about Larson? She asked, wiping her eyes. Leave him to me.
De confrontation with Larsen happened at the Rocha Industries headquarters 2 days later.
I arranged for Victor to be present, along with the police financial crimes unit. When Larsen realized he was trapped, he turned vicious. You planned this all along, he shouted.
You and Sophia.
This whole inheritance thing is a scam. I smiled calmly. Actually, Larsen, the only scam here was you convincing my daughter to throw away her relationship with her mother for a gambling addict's empty promises. As the officers led him away, Larsen made one final desperate threat. This isn't over, he snarled. People like you don't get happy endings. Perhaps not, I replied. But we do get justice. 6 months later, I sat on the terrace of my new home, watching Sophia tend to the garden we'd planted together. Our relationship remained fragile, healing in fits and starts. Some days the old hurt resurfaced, other days felt like redemption. Larsen received 3 years for fraud. The house was gone, but we were building something new, a foundation that had already helped dozens of women reclaim their financial independence. The billions were both a burden and a blessing. I would never be just Clara the art teacher again. But perhaps that woman had served her purpose, preparing me for this unexpected chapter. As the sun set over Sao Paulo, I thought about Elizabeth's final journal entry. To Clara, the woman who lost everything and still remained standing.
You are stronger than all of us. Forgive what must be forgiven.
Remember what must be remembered. And never apologize for claiming what was always meant to be yours. I hadn't just inherited money. I'd inherited my own power. And that was the real fortune after all.